Hello trainers, Ganeto here, and today we're diving together into Little Cup with a lot of action around Bronzor. If you didn't know, Bronzor is gonna be your main priority to get on that Little Cup, and if you do not have one, well, this video might be around Bronzor, but will also teach you some ways to counter that Pokemon as well. So if I were you, I would stay till the end to see all those 4 team recommendations, just in case I get some weird ideas about how to counter Bronzor and the whole meta in general, because Bronzor is gonna be the main key element for your team success, but also if you can counter it down completely, even when you have a Bronzor on your own team, you're gonna be on a very good spot overall. So that's all about it for the introduction, and let's start off with the first team showcase out of the total 4, because we're having a Ducklet up on the lead, which is pretty good in general for the meta. Even against Bronzor it has some play, and I really like it as a lead because of the amount of the options that you can get with this Pokemon. You might want to go with Brave Bird over Aerial Ace, but I recommend Aerial Ace only because of that debuff that you might get from your Brave Bird, and if they happen to steal your Brave Bird, well, you are kinda obliged into switching out. However, this team has a very nice safe switch on the face of Selmet. This Pokemon with Infestation can protect the Bronzor from the dark types, and of course you can spam your way to victory with those body slams or just do a lot of damage with your Bug Buzz. Everything is glassy here other than Wynot and Bronzor, so you can see as to how you can manipulate certain matchups so that your Selmet can get the upper hand on the switch. Even against a Bronzor of the enemy, you're gonna be able to go pretty rough at them with your Ducklet and your Selmet, while you still have your own Bronzor for the mirror. However, the core breaker of this line is not gonna be another Bronzor, but instead the Dino, because it has to get hit by a Brave Bird or an Aerial Ace from that Ducklet, otherwise those Bubble Beams are just gonna tickle it, while at the back against the Selmet it can still beat it down, while it has a very nice matchup against the Confusions and the Psysocks from that Bronzor. However, if your Bronzor is running Tackle, you might be able to counter those dark types as well, but you might be in a little bit of trouble against other matchups. So it is always a give and take situation, but it's all up to you to consider. Into the next one, trainers, and we're having not only Bronzor on this team as a closer, but also as a leader. We're gonna have Wynot, which is another pretty tanky option, perhaps the only other reliable tanky option that you can get for Little Cup, because up on the lead it might have only one single move with your counters and your mirror codes, but still you're gonna see that this Pokemon can pressure a lot the enemy, especially with its bulk, able to counter a lot of meta threats, and of course even against Bronzor you are still gonna be able to do a nice chunk before fainting. The only drawback of this line is gonna be that sometimes you might be led into a timeout, and yeah, that is not gonna work towards your advantage, so you might want to consider replacing Vulpix with something else tankier if you want to have that time's up message and you want to win like that. But I think that Vulpix is gonna help you in general much more, and of course you're gonna get access to a much better moveset other than something like a Leaky Tank or a Nigglybuff could offer back to you. Anyways, about the safe switch on the face of Vulpix, I really like it as a Shadow. I believe that with Shadow Vulpix you have nothing to worry about. You are still gonna be able to do so down most threats, and your weak attacks you can get there pretty fast. If you want to run Ember, feel free to do so. I believe that the Ember damage can get crazy over time, especially with the Shadow bonus, but also with the Flame Charge you're gonna be able to boost up your attack stat, while you're gonna be on a very good spot overall. You're gonna see that this team is kinda struggling against Drifloon. Well, that's mainly because of its typing. Up in front you have nothing to throw at it, only the mirror codes, and trust me, they are not gonna be enough to finish it off, whereas Shadow Ball can seal the deal against the Wynot and your Bronzor. However, you still got your Bronzor with those Confusions and the Psysocks, which can connect for big damage on the Glassy Drifloon. At the back, you can always rely on your Vulpix as well, especially with the Weather Balls dealing a lot of damage when they come out of a Shadow Vulpix. Otherwise, you can always use Ember in order to burn down that Drifloon, and you're gonna be much safer than ever. So that's all about this team, and now let's move forward into team number 3. Here I have a line that can for sure use Bronzor as its safe switch, but also can play around it and against it. Because you got Whooper up on the lead, which is perhaps the safest lead that you can use even against its worst opponent, something like a Drifloon or a Ducklet. You can always do severe damage to those Pokemon with your moveset. I like Whooper a lot in the meta, it's pretty safe to use, and not gonna lie, I'm not sure we're gonna see a lot of Drifloons, more like Ducklets in the meta. At the back we have Dino as our closer because of how amazing it is to work under shields and with Cottony out of the way. Even against the Cottony up on the lead with your Whooper, you can still go up against it with those back-to-back body slams, which can do severe damage to that Pokemon, and you still have Bronzor at the back, which can protect your other two Pokemon for sure against that Cottony threat, which is able to completely farm it down with the Confusions. Feel free to consider using Tackle as well on this Bronzor if you want to have more coverage against Dark types, but I think that with the other two Pokemon in play, you're gonna be on a very good spot. As a core breaker here, we got the Why Not, but still I think that with proper synergy between the individual picks, you're gonna be on a very good spot. However, Why Not is gonna be able to get a soft win against your Whooper for sure, especially with the counter damage and those mirror codes, while at the back the counters are still gonna threat your Dino out of existence. You got your Bronzor, of course, to counter down this Pokemon, but as we saw before, still Why Not can do a whole amount of work against the Bronzor for sure. So definitely core breaker, not gonna be a tough one to pass through, but I think that this team has no other weaknesses, so you can see as to how this team can work, the synergy between the picks, and of course you can rely a lot on your Whooper in order to do severe work against your enemies with your spamming moveset, and yeah, you can always destroy them down with your Dino as well if you can keep your shields alive for the end game. Time for the final team showcase, and this time we're gonna have Bronzor up on the lead while we're gonna follow it with a very nice and safe switch on the face of Seal, and your Cottony is gonna be your main closer. This team is gonna lose straight and square to Vullaby, whatever that might call. Well, that's mainly because of its typing and its fast attack and perhaps the charge attacks. So Vullaby, whatever you might want to call it, is gonna be able to do a lot of work with its dark typing against Bronzor, so you might want to definitely consider using Tackle over anything else up on the lead. At the back against your Seal, it can always resist those leaks, while against your closer, which is the Cottony, you can always do super effective damage with charms, but they are also gonna do the same thing with their flying fast attack. With that in mind, consider using this team wisely, but I don't think you're gonna see a lot of Vullabys in the meta. However, this Pokemon can be obtained below 500 CP by trading with a trainer that has hatched it, which is a low level trainer, so you can see the methods as to how you can get it. It's pretty similar to Ponyard and the Salandit that we have on the Little Cup Remix, so other than that I think you're gonna be just fine with this team. Able to pressure a lot with the fast attacks, while you still have the main charge attacks of your Seal in order to pressure a lot for that shield scenario, and of course you need the shields for the end game for Cottony. This team relies a little bit on Bronzor, but mainly on the ability of the enemies and the possibility of the enemies having a dark type on their team to counter your own Bronzor, because that way your Cottony is gonna be able not only to protect your Bronzor, but also able to completely farm down that dark type so that you can have the upper hand towards the end game. With that in mind, I think we're gonna wrap things up for today's video. Bronzor is gonna be a completely meta Pokemon to use for the Little Cup, but these teams might have given you an idea not only about Bronzor but about other picks as well, how to use them and how to completely counter down the top meta Pokemon of the meta. Thank you for watching, trainers. Just be sure to leave a huge like before you go, subscribe to the channel if you already haven't, and if you want to support even more, well, joining as a member can always help with that matter. Thank you once again, and I hope to see you all into the next one. Take care, trainers.